So continuing our chapter on record keeping, today's lesson is going to talk about preparing a budget sheet and understanding how to add all of our expenses together. So our first expense that we're going to distinguish between is a fixed expense and annual expenses. So fixed expenses are those expenses that never change every month. Every month you pay a set amount. So maybe you pay $450 for your apartment for rent, or you're paying a $1,200 mortgage. That payment never changes. So that becomes a fixed expense. Your car payment is a fixed expense. So things that are a recurring payment that stays the same are considered your fixed living expenses. In your monthly budget, you'll also have what are annual expenses. Now, these things might sound more appealing because they don't look like they show up in your monthly payments, but you need to budget for them. So these are things like your property taxes that you only pay once or twice a year, your homeowner's insurance that you only pay once a year. Even though those payments only come at one time, we have to set that money aside every month so when that payment becomes due, you have the money in your account to make that big payment. So we have to include our annual expenses in our monthly budget sheets as well. Okay, so let's look at some of our formulas that we're going to need to use. Our first is the monthly share of the annual expenses. So like I said, even though we're not paying this bill every month, we have to put this money away. So what we do is we take the annual expenses and we divide those expenses by 12. And then that money needs to be set aside every month. So when that payment comes due, you have enough money in your account to pay it. Then we're going to look at your total monthly expenses. So your total monthly expenses are going to be one in three parts. It's going to be your monthly living expenses. So those are your utilities that fluctuate every month. That's your food, that's your gas, that's your entertainment, that's your living expenses. Then you're going to have those fixed expenses. Now those are usually those big ticket items, your car payment, your student loan payment, your rent, your mortgage payment. And then finally, we want to add into our total monthly expenses the monthly share of those annual expenses so that we created a budget that we won't go over and spend too much money. Okay, so let's look at our first practice example. It says Rose's annual expenses are $3,780. Her monthly living expenses are $579. Her fixed expenses are $950. Find her monthly share for her annual expenses. We're going to find this per month. And then we're going to find that total monthly expenses. So the first thing we're going to do is find that monthly share. So to do that, I'm going to take her yearly expenses. So those are probably her insurances that come due once a year, her property taxes, the big ticket items. And we're going to divide that by 12 to find that her monthly share is $315. Those are her annual expenses. So we're going to take her monthly share of her annual expenses and we're going to add that to her monthly living, which is $579. And we're going to add that to her fixed expenses at $950. So her total expenses for the month is going to be $1,844. Now, hopefully her job will net her pay that will cover all of those costs. If not, then she will need to readjust that budget. Okay, if you want to look in your textbook on page 160 right now, at the bottom of page 160, there's 2 concept checks for you to try. You can pause this video and try those problems. When you're ready, go ahead and play and check your solutions. So for number 1, that concept check should give us $350 for that monthly expenditures for the annual expenses. So we're going to add that to, I know this is getting cut off a little bit, to the $670 and to the $800 for a total of $1,820 for number 1. For number 2, we have annual expenses at $3,494.04. That's going to give us a monthly share of $291.17. And we're going to add that to the fixed costs and the living costs to get a total of $1,446.57 for the monthly budget. All right, if you have any questions, please send me an email.